Yeah, there you go. Okay. All right. Hello. Welcome, everyone. This is orientation, the first orientation of 2025, and the first orientation for Coming to the Table Los Angeles chapter in a good while. So, what we're doing today in our orientation is actually talking about our mission and our vision and who Los Angeles or Southern California Coming to the Table organization is. We'll be reminding people throughout this that there is a national organization, and this is one of the local chapters. We'll be presenting some definitions and processes that we use, and we welcome everyone here right now. One of our key milestones or touchstones is assume that you're welcomed and that we create a welcoming space for you. So with that in mind, please join us as we begin to talk about who Southern California Coming to the Table local chapter is.
All right. So you just heard from Wilson. I'm Valencia, and I'm just going to go over a little bit of what we're going to cover. So Wilson gave you a large scale overview. So we're going to do an introduction activity. Typically, when we do the orientation, we have a mix of newcomers and not so newcomers. But today, I think it would be great if we all did it, because I think that there's plenty of time for it. So we'll talk about like who we are and then what brought us to the table. Then we are going to we prepared some information. So I think a lot of times people, they just talk about what we do and we kind of get into it, but we're going to talk a little bit about the national framework, and then we'll talk about our local framework. We'll also talk about how our local group got started. And then we'll talk about some things that come up quite a bit after a meditation. So particularly white supremacy culture. And I know that we did some studying together. So I'm really looking forward to that. We'll talk about the touchstones and we'll talk about the theoretical underpinnings of the circle process. And then we should be wrapping up before our meeting. So with that said, let me just see here if we're able to move. Little technical difficulties here. Okay. We also have a video from a couple years ago. We did a presentation at National for Oops and Ouch. So that is a very important touchstone. So you'll see we have some very special talent that we have contracted for that. So be on the lookout. And then just talking about what it means to stay at the table and what that community is. So to start, let's start with the introductory activity. And I'll sort of give you an example of what that looks like. So I've been coming to the Pasadena table since 2017. And what brought me to the table is actually through work. So at the time I was a chief diversity officer, and I was looking for a resource, not necessarily for myself, but I had a HR case where I had someone that needed to get some perspective. And doing some research, what came up was the Occidental event that I think that the group had. And I was like, oh, this person should have that type of community. And so then I joined the listserv. I can't remember who I had talked to. One of the conveners of the circle. I can't remember who I talked to, but they're like, just come to a meeting, check it out. So I came to a meeting, and then I've come to a meeting ever since. And I never sent that person to the space because he would not have been safe. So, but anyway, I just love the people, love the space, and I love how I feel after I leave a meeting. And then I joined the steering committee in 2020, right during the pandemic. And that's been a really great experience. Okay, so that is me. Why don't you want to go next?
Sure.
We can go this way.
Sure. So I'm Wilson Bell, and I am on the steering committee with Valencia. I should have maybe talk about that in the introduction.
Yeah, do you want to?
Sure.
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah. In case you didn't hear me, my name is Wilson Bell, and I'm also on the steering committee, and maybe I should have talked about that a little in the introduction. We have, for our local chapter, a steering committee made up of volunteers from the overall organization, and we help in a democratic way to basically steer our chapter. With input always from the overall organization, and then with some we help to just provide guidance and disseminate information. So that said, I came to the table at the local chapter at its very beginning, its inception, and I was invited by Lisa, who is the founder of the organization, and we'll talk about that a little later. I came because as an African American, I've always been aware of racial issues. And perhaps there are people who are African American, but in my experience, a lot of people who fall under that Black American title or umbrella will say that they have, for much of their lives, understood and experienced racial issues. And so after going to a coming to the table event, actually with Tom and I'm forgetting the lady's name, the people who actually wrote the book on coming to the table, Lisa mentioned to me that she wanted to formulate the organization, and so I joined. And as Valencia said, being a part of it has been really, really supportive for me and interesting. And when I leave, I feel better. And so I'm excited to be a part of this.
Hi, I'm Sharon Kyle, and I'm a member of the steering committee. And I came to Coming to the Table back, I think it was 2017, 2018, not quite sure. I'm looking over at Marion, who is in the room with me and is also on the steering committee. And she's the reason that I even knew about Coming to the Table. I was speaking at an event, and it was the topic of my conversation, I believe, had something to do with the fact that during the Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton election back in 2016, white women overwhelmingly supported Donald Trump. And I think the topic of my talk was, why was that? And it really occurred to me as I was preparing for that discussion, it occurred to me that I didn't have any good answers. I did come up with some answers in doing research. And when I gave my talk, Marion, who was in the audience, came up to me after it was over and asked, had I introduced herself and asked, had I ever heard of Coming to the Table? And I had not. She says, well, you should come join us. And that was many years ago. And I don't know if I've missed a meeting yet. I became a member of the steering committee probably 2023. But I love coming to the table and I love being a part of this organization because I don't know of any organization that really works towards unifying and healing one of America's deepest injuries. So it's important to me that I work on this healing and also helping each of us, both sides, all sides, to understand that white supremacy is bad for everyone, not just Black people. So I've been just very fortunate that I found a safe space to be in a racially mixed, ethnically mixed group where we can discuss these things and feel free to discuss them.
So I'm Dick Price. I'm Sharon's husband. I was with her the night that she spoke in Akbar's bar on Sunset Boulevard. And we met Marion and learned about Coming to the Table, and it seemed right up our alley. We're a mixed race marriage, and we also publish a publication called LA Progressive, whose touchstone, whose core is race and racism. So a lot of what we publish circulates around that. And a lot of our personal discussions back and forth revolve around racism. So Coming to the Table just seemed like a natural match for us. we also attended the one annual gathering in Portland that was absolutely a delightful 3-day event. We made some nice friends and we had some good discussions, and it's kind of, I would say in some cases, it's deepened our relationship to each other, I would say. In some cases, it's driven us apart a little bit. It's been a delightful time, and I don't know, I'm not on the steering committee. I'm the driver to bring Sharon to different events.
Hi, I'm Marion Tango, and I'm on the steering committee. I discovered coming to the table, gosh, almost 15 years ago. I was doing my own genealogy, and I'd always thought of myself, grew up as a progressive, very involved in a lot of different movements, but I didn't really know my place in the civil rights movement. And when I did my genealogy, I found out that I descend from enslavers, and that completely turned my world upside down. And very soon after that, I stumbled upon a very strange way through Rob Brezhny's astrology page coming to the table. And I called Tom, and he's like, "Oh, there's one right down the street from you." And so I started coming only a few months into when the local chapter started. And then after a group of us went to a national gathering in Virginia, the leader of our group unexpectedly died, and we all stepped in to fill the void because it took 6 of us to replace one of her. I'm currently the only white person in the steering committee, which feels like a huge honor. What else? Guess that's it. Glad to be here.
Thank you all. I did get teary-eyed. This is just, there's so much love here. So thank you for continuing to come to the table and work together. What we're going to do now is I'm going to go over the national piece. So folks have mentioned Tom DeWolf, and he actually is retiring. And so we're in a really big moment of transition. But Tom is one of the national conveners and has been supported. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the national framework and then come more local. So specifically with coming to the table, TABLE is actually an acronym that stands for Taking America Beyond the Legacy of Enslavement. And the vision of coming to the table, and I'll just sort of read along here because it's just it's almost poetic for me, these pieces that we picked. The vision for the United States is of a just and truthful society that acknowledges and seeks to heal from the racial wounds of the past, from slavery and the many forms of racism it spawned. And the mission of coming to the table provides leadership, resources, and a supportive environment for all who wish to acknowledge and heal wounds from racism that is rooted in the United States history of slavery. And the way that you put it, Sharon, about the injury, is the injury that we all share. And some people have it more severe than others, but we're all impacted by it. And so really the national group creates a buoy to help us, to support us all as we embark in all of our journey in our local chapters. And so the Pasadena chapter, and at some points it's included the Santa Monica chapter, but we partner together. And so we meet once a month, and the steering committee has representatives that meet with a local group that is connected to the national. So we get our support with the national as well. And the webpage has a lot of resources for us for training, different guides, different resources. And then those leadership groups, we're able to connect with other groups that are running local chapters. And so it creates that network for us. So there's lots of different things that the national group does, but one of the things I would be remiss if I didn't mention is that we are connected, and you all are going to have to help me. The group that we're connected to in Oakland, that actually runs it.
Oh, got it.
Does anyone know?
Same thing. I can't remember. It is our umbrella organization that holds our 501c authorization or nonprofit status.
Mhm.
So our local, well, actually, our national chapter is a child, if you will, child organization of that organization and
Our joy.
our joy.
So you get the gold star. So Our Joy, based in Oakland, is our parent organization. We are a nonprofit. And I invite all new folks and even folks that are not so new to visit the organization. And then we also have the national gathering as one way that we convene every other year. Okay. So let me go back. So we talked a little bit about the national framework, and we're going to talk about the local history. And so I'm going to invite Wilson up to talk a little bit more about Lisa. And so
That's
take
fine.
it away.
So as I mentioned, and a couple of people actually also just alluded to Lisa being the founding member of our organization. And she was just really lovely and funny and smart. And as Marion said, she did the job of the whole steering committee. She, I mean, just by founding the organization, she pulled together like 6 or 7 of us and brought us in to start the organization. And then as the organization went on, Marion came in early enough to see we used to have emails regularly. We had an email trail, and a lot of times she just like send in articles, just stuff that she read. And often it was about, racial stuff, but sometimes it was like educational, like this will help you to get stronger. And she did that. She set up the Pasadena Library. She made sure that that was happening every month. Um, any kind of event, anything that was coming up that we should be involved in, that we should know about, she took care of that. She actually brought in our now and lead African American person on the steering committee, Renee. She thought, and it is something that is discussed in coming to the table, but she wanted to make sure that there was an African American representative as the co-chair of the organization. So she reached out and brought Renee in to do that. So any of the old guard, when we bring up or have an occasion to think about Lisa, it's a very heartening thing because the core of what we are as a chapter comes and sprung from this essence, this person, and part of, as Marion said as well, we came together to do the steering committee. And one of the things that Renee said was like, I can't do everything that Lisa did. But I don't want this to die. And so that's what brought us to this point. We support the vision and the mission of the national chapter. That is our gold star. We do that. And as a local chapter, we're continually evolving, but we've decided that a lot of our work is internal, and it's about communicating and supporting each other to be able to go outside and reach other people. So that's where, up until this point, the shaping of the local chapter has been. As I said, we're continually evolving. So next year we may be somewhere else. But that's the background on Lisa, who I occasionally think about. Just something will happen and I think about her. She and I worked together on our Black History things and had just, yeah. So thank you.
Mary, did you want to say anything about Lisa before we moved on?
I can, yeah.
If you, yeah. Just say you knew her and stuff.
Yeah, she got all the white people who showed up to go do our work. So one of the very first things, only a month or two in, Allison also joined, who was in our steering committee for a while, and we went to a white training to learn about whiteness. And, you know, she wanted us all there, but she also wanted to make sure we weren't burdening the African-American community with what we didn't know. And so she was just amazing at finding resources, at sharing resources, at making sure everybody, she'd take people out for coffee. She, you know, she was very personally involved in every single person that showed up. So it was a huge vacuum that she left behind that we're trying to keep trying to make her proud, but you know, she was a powerhouse. Yeah.
Thanks so much. So we definitely want to support the legacy and remember, you know, Lisa. Just a couple things, I think what we have here. Wilson, what was the year that you all started?
Oh my God.
It's either 2013 or 14.
I think I want to say it was 13 because I think I had her for 2 years before she passed away unexpectedly.
Right. Okay. So 2013, and we also have another angel, right, Fran? Sutton Williams,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Who's done a lot of work, and I mentioned Allison. Allison is still alive and
Yeah.
still supporting us and still coming to meetings. But just really just thinking about our four mothers and all of the work that we're building upon, right? And calling them into the space. Yeah. Okay, so this slide here goes into a little bit more of the story. And so I'm going to just talk about a little bit of the resources that we have. So for those of you who are watching this recording, if you're a new member, you have several resources that come to you in the welcome letter. So I'm just going to kind of browse through that so you can see what that looks like. So the welcome letter has several resources. We usually try to find images of trees because that is one of the images that national uses a lot for the organization. So we're always trying to find a beautiful tree. So you may see iterations of this, but I'll do a slow scroll. The welcome letter has a lot of resources, so feel free to kind of take some passes at it because there's a lot of resources and links and things, but it definitely tells you a little bit more about the organization. It tells you to join the national group. It's free membership. We do encourage people to donate for support, but it is free. It'll allow you to receive resources and updates from national. It also will connect you to our group. We also have a Facebook group. We have a lot of resources related to reparations. There's a linked descendants group. Marion mentioned her genealogy. There's others in the group who may have cross-racial descendants. And so, as Marion mentioned, there could be a lot of sobering effects and a journey that folks might be on as they're learning about their heritage. So that group could be helpful. We also have, we have to change, I'm like reading this, we have to change this in terms of the Santa Monica group because we've merged with that group, but we also have a reading list that is part of this too. So we do encourage you to take a look at that letter, and we will be sending additional information out. So don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have questions. Okay. So that's the welcome letter. And one of the things that we do when we have meetings, so we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to kind of join. So I mentioned we meet monthly. During that monthly meeting, we typically start with a meditation. And so on the screen, you see a definition of what what a meditation is, but we're actually going to go through one together. And so I'm going to turn it over to Marion to take us through a short meditation, just so you can see what it feels like in a meeting.
Thank you, Valencia. Okay. I invite everyone, if you're comfortable with it, to close your eyes. And just slow down and deepen your breath. Start to just feel wherever you're sitting in a chair, probably. Just feel the support of the chair holding you. And you've heard a lot already. You've heard a lot of information that may be swirling around, stirring up thoughts, or maybe some physical energy. Your heart may be racing, or whatever you find, just start to let it settle. Maybe your eyes are flickering, your jaw is tight. Just start to notice what's happening in your body and invite a little bit of softening, whatever you find. Feeling the earth under your feet. Your feet are on the ground. Letting your belly soften so the breath can get all the way in. Feeling your roots going down into the earth, the roots of your ancestors, everyone that was here before you, that was part of you being here. And then start to feel outward, feel everyone else. It's part of this community, either right here now or around the country. Who is tuned into this community? Just let yourself expand horizontally to connect like little beams of light to all the other beams of light. Choosing to be connected to our work, to our vision, to community, belonging, learning and healing. And bring that attention into your heart center. Both the vertical into your ancestors and the horizontal into our community. Feel where they meet in your heart. Take another deep breath. And maybe finish by putting an intention, an energetic intention into our circle, into our community. Maybe peace, love, understanding, healing, support, whatever feels right for you today, offer it. And with another deep breath, you can start to come back into your body, let your eyes start to open. Thank you.
Thank you, Marion. And so the meditation practice is really important for coming to the table because we want to make sure our minds and our bodies are connected and that we are really present when we share in the circle. And so one of the methods that we use is the STAR method, which is one of the trauma-informed methods that we think about because the healing really is trying to attend to the trauma, our trauma from our own experiences, but also the trauma that's in our genealogy, right, in our epigenetics from our ancestors. So meditation is one of those ways in which we can tap into that. And we like to start our meetings with meditation. So this section where I'm going to, so thinking about helpful mindsets, attitudes, and perspectives. What you see on the screen is a table where on the left side, the column captures helpful mindsets and attitudes. The center column looks at indicative behavior. And then the third column is the inner voice. And so one of the things that sharing and circle in our meetings will do is that we have to pay attention to our inner voice and what that's telling us about what we do and what we think. And so this chart, as you continue to go through meetings, you might start to pay attention to your inner voice and notice what you've been learning and start to just hold it up and say, okay, is this helping me or is it not helping me? So let me give you one example. So a helpful mindset or attitude is centering another person. So we talk a lot about the white and Black dynamic here. And one of the things that we do to make sure that we're centering Black people is that we might have Black people share first, right? So we're really trying to put them in the center. And when we first started doing that, I noticed that sometimes that makes people really uncomfortable because it feels like, hey, why are we paying attention to race? Shouldn't we be colorblind? But it puts us in this really race conscious place. And so just thinking about if you were doing that practice, what comes up for you and noticing, are you having an experience that might be helpful where you're like, okay, this is really helping me to center Black voices. What's coming up for me? Or are you saying, hey, that's not fair. We shouldn't be looking at race. We should just let whoever wants to share first, right? And so just, I invite you to pay attention to that. Another example is we really talk about white supremacy culture and holding up that anybody could be impacted by it and subscribe to it and really seek to be proximate to whiteness, even if they are not white. And so what we have done in the last couple of years is actually really examine white supremacy culture, all the tenets. We had some meetings where we took one of the 9 tenets of it and really wrestled with it. And it could be really hard and overwhelming. And so thinking about like one of the unhelpful things your inner voice might say is, this is really hard work coming to the table. I don't want to work this hard. I need a break, right? But it is important to think about some people don't get a break. Like I'm Black identified. I present as Black. I'm fair skinned, so I may not have, I may have some privilege in some spaces depending on where I am. But the idea is I can't take off my skin. I would love a break. I'm not gonna lie, I would love a break. But we have to think about our the relative work. And certainly we don't want to burn out and we're in it for the long haul. We want people to always, know that we can always come back to the table and stay at the table. But it's important to think about our own privilege. And this is a journey. And again, invite you to wrestle with this as you continue to come to meetings. One other tenet that we want to bring up especially for new members is this idea of white sensitivity. Robin DiAngelo actually refers to this as white fragility. And so this is the same concept here. But it's not just the reaction of white people being sensitive or getting defensive, but it's a process. It's like a set of dominoes that fall. So what it could show up as is if we start talking about really sensitive topics related to race, and white people or people who are not used to having these conversations may not have the resilience. So it might look like tears that disrupt a meeting and then center whoever's crying as opposed to wading through the work. It looks like someone calling in someone for problematic behavior, and then that person saying, well, I didn't mean it, and then we focus on the intent but not the impact, and then it distracts us from the accountability. Or the defense that then turns into, okay, well, I feel like you're making me uncomfortable. I feel unsafe. And all of a sudden, the person who committed the harm is now the victim. And then, so we really have to be mindful of that. And it shows up in white identified, white presenting people, but also people who may have been broken into white supremacy culture and may seek to be proximate to whiteness. So we have to be mindful that we need to face it not only in white people, but people who are non-white. And again, it's a journey. And one of our touchstones, we're going to get into touchstones in a minute, but one of the touchstones is we may not get to the end of the road today. So you have to be mindful that, if we can make progress, it might be incremental, but we have to keep at it. So there's some endurance to this. Okay, so speaking of touchstones are an established set of mutual agreed upon principles that guide how participants will treat and be with each other in a deep dialogue. And so we use touchstones in coming to the table, and they aim to address the participants' needs and expectations to feel safe and are brave enough to speak openly and honestly and help each other make more space for each other. Said a different way, they're essentially the norms that we all we agree to make sure that this space allows us to have an honest dialogue and speak from the heart. And in coming to the table, the dialogue is our work, the dialogue is our medicine, and that is the pathway to our healing. And so we think that the conversations are critical for us to take America beyond the legacy of enslavement. And I want to say that out loud because as a new member, I would go to the meetings and I'd be like, okay, so what are we doing next? Where are we going to pick it? Where are we going to disrupt? Where are we meeting? And I would just get this okay, we get the energy, love it. Also, the conversation is what we're after, right? So I would just invite you invite you to roll with it because it might feel a little odd to start, but trust us, these conversations are critical. I'm just going to kind of roll through some of the touchstones so you can see. So I know that when we send out the welcome letter, we have access to this. But what we do at every meeting is we start with the touchstones. We read them together. If we're virtual, we take turns popcorning through, and we read each one just to remind us how important they are and how we will engage with each other in the space. We also collectively enforce these norms. One of the ways we do that is with the oops and ouch, and we'll do a deeper dive on that touchstone in particular in a second. But we read through all of these before we start the circle. And I love that we end with the last one, expect non-closure, stay in the present. We probably won't get to the end of the road today, just mention that. But the idea is coming to the table is the first step in staying at the table. Staying conscious and committed is the key to racial healing and transformation. And again, it's that endurance, it's that resilience, it's that persistence that is important. So do cozy up to the touchstones, and you'll definitely be seeing them a lot more as you come to more meetings. And with that, we have them here. Yeah, do you want me to go over those, or do you want to go to the circle?
Whatever you want to do.
I'm thinking with the time, let's go to the circle so we can still do the video.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to cover this part?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, really quickly. I could spend all day, I think we all could, on the touchstones because they really are rich. But we are running out of time, so we'll get to the circle process. This is another important component of coming to the tables practice. Particularly our local chapter uses this. I'll just read this. The circle process is rooted in the tradition of taking circles that indigenous peoples in North America use and have used for millennia. Different Native peoples practice different forms of the circle process. Circles are far more than a technique. They are a way of life. Circles embody a philosophy, principles, and values that apply whether people are sitting in circle or not. The circle sort of equalizes everybody. So it's not hierarchy. It's not this flat thing, but it's a circle. And that's part of the reason that we do it this way. One of the things is in Native culture circles, they often will use a talking stick. And whoever has the talking stick, it is their time, their space, to include everybody else with respect. And they allow them to have that moment. What we do in our process is we allot a certain amount of time for each person to talk and share without interruption. And the other thing that we try to do in our circle process is make sure that everybody is offered the opportunity to speak before someone gets a second chance. One of the touchstones is you are invited. You have the offer to talk. You are not required. And that's again a part of the whole essence of we are creating a safe and brave space to heal. So that's the circle.
Okay, so that's the circle process. Let's see. So one of the big touchstones, they're all important, but all of them kind of play a different role. One of them is the oops and ouches, and that is one that gives us a process for repair. If there's something that happens in the space that threatens to harm or disrupt or disrupt the circle, so to speak. So with oops and ouch, we have a video where actually a couple years ago for the national gathering 2021, actually, not a couple of years ago now. It feels like just yesterday. But we did a video to embody what this specific touchstone means, because it's important for us to have a way that if something comes up in the circle that we need to examine more, that we need to make sure that we're not breaking or breaching one of the touchstones, is how to bring things up and address them and then move on in our journey. So I'm going to go ahead and play, and it'll just be a couple minutes and then we'll talk about it.
Reporting on those reactions in the chat of watching an ouch. There's what the person who experienced the ouch can do to promote healing. And then there's what is the role of the facilitator, which can be so important. So as you're watching our role play, you can think about each of those situations.
And also about what you relate to the most. Is there any situation or character in this role play that you identify with, or that's familiar or really annoys you? And notice again how you feel in your body. Notice if anything gets activated as we do this little skit.
And you'll be going into breakouts to talk about your reactions to the role play. So
okay, are we ready?
Let's stop sharing the screen.
Okay.
Nancy, I hear you asking for the prior slide, and we should note it was in the chat earlier, but all of these materials are available in the drive. So just wanted folks to know that this isn't your last chance to see it.
Yes.
And another thing, with all the different parts to play, there's a lot of conversation these days that the bystander has the most impact on how something ends. So when you see a conflict going on, it's the people watching from the sides that actually have the most effect. All right, and scene starts. Hi, Allison, how are you?
I'm good, you?
I'm good. I was just looking at our Facebook group. Lots of good conversation on there lately.
Yes, and I especially like the post that Renee shared. I'm sorry she's not here because I wanted to compliment her on it.
Hi, Wilson and Valencia. We were just talking about Renee's Facebook post. We're just getting started. We'll wait a few more minutes for more people to show up.
Yes, I was just praising her post. It really made me pause and reflect deeply. She's so articulate and clear. I'm very impressed.
You sound surprised, Allison. I don't know why, though. Don't you know that she studied journalism in college? That sounds like a microaggression to me.
What? I meant it as a compliment. I mean, Renee's a really good writer. I just wanted to share that it impressed me. Why do you always make things about race? And now I just feel attacked.
You know what, Allison? You're only saying that because she's Black and she doesn't fit the stereotype of an uneducated Black woman. That's typical Karen behavior.
Whoa, Valencia, I do not appreciate being called out. You are supposed to call in, not call out. Plus, I'm not a racist. I loved her article. It was so articulate. And I'm not sure you can even call an ouch for Renee when she isn't even here.
Okay, everyone, let's settle down. It seems like everyone's here, so why don't we go ahead and get started with our touchstones?
No. We need to address this. Allison, did you realize what you said could be seen as a microaggression? You're not hearing Valencia and what she's saying.
I still don't think I did anything. I would never hurt Renee's feelings or say anything that would upset her. She's my friend. I thought you were my friend too, Valencia. I don't know why you're so upset. I'm making this such a big deal. It has nothing to do with you.
Okay, it's getting late. We have a lot to cover today. Let's get back to the meeting. We can talk about this
Marianne,
later.
we need to address this ouch. And Allison, do you know why this was an ouch? Let's just talk about this and stay at the table.
Look, why don't you and Allison talk about this offline with Valencia so we can get back on track as a meeting?
This is the problem with you liberal Facebook people. You think you know it all from your books, but you don't. And this is why this is exhausting. First of all, Allison, you should be grateful. And what do you mean by articulate? Second, it doesn't matter that you have one or even two Black friends. Third, this is why I don't like coming to these meetings. You guys will read, but you won't do the work. You expect me to do it for you, and I am exhausted.
Allison, I know this is hard. I know that you might feel targeted and on the spot right now, but this is the way that we have to work through things. Allison?
I just don't know if I can stay. I feel attacked and I'm a good person. I don't know.
Allison, we're not attacking you. We're acknowledging what happened and we're asking you to do the same thing. That's all. Remember, this is hard stuff.
Okay, so I told you we were going to have amazing actors. And so obviously the script is dramatized. So because we wanted to really draw out, you have the person who's really agitated, very assertive, really unapologetically telling the truth. You have the person that devolves into crying, the defense, I'm a good person. You have the convener who is seeking to deflect and say, hey, let's get back on task. That's white supremacy culture at play, right? It's like we have to pay attention to time. We have to move things along. We have to work by the agenda. But the coming to the table twist is Wilson's character, where he says, look, this is the hard work. We've got to stay in it. We're not going to put the agenda and the timetable above the community, right? And so in that space, in that particular video in our conference presentation, we actually went into breakout rooms and we facilitated sort of who did you identify with, how would you address it, what would you move through? And so our meetings don't start like that. We certainly have ouches and we've definitely had some hard times and community members that needed to take a step away and then return when they were ready because there are hard conversations. But the idea is, these moments can pass if you're not paying attention. And so we want to make sure that we all have a shared responsibility to be diligent and call an oops or an ouch so that way we can repair. Okay, so we just have two more items to cover. So the first is some tips. So the first is being comfortable in discomfort. And so if you think about a stoplight, red, yellow, green, that red zone is a place of harm. So we do not want our conversations to be harmful. We want them to be a place where you can grow and heal. So we really want to stay in a green zone. That yellow zone is the comfort zone. And so the idea is we have to strike a balance and only you will know where you are in the green, yellow, or red zone. If you're in the red zone, we want you to call an oops and ouch. If you are in the green zone, that is the ideal cruising altitude. If you're in the yellow zone, we invite you to think about how could you walk and put your toes right at the edge of that and bring that energy into the space and share from that place. So you can move out of that comfort zone and find more comfort in that growth zone. And so we don't want, so if you think about working out, right? Some of that feels closer to us than others. But if you think about like doing some squats or going for a walk, right when you get to that place where, you sit down after your walk or your workout and you're like, ooh, I feel that, right? That soreness is not, it might be painful, but it's not pain, right? If you are overexerting yourself, that is a place of harm and that's not what we want. But we want you to, after, you're coming to the table, you got that good soreness that you're like, that was a good workout. So that's the sweet spot. So we want to be safe and brave. in that space. And then finally, we want to acknowledge that this work is hard. But again, we don't want it to be hurtful or harmful. We want it to be healing. And we invite you to commit to coming to the table. And I would say the first I would say give it 3 meetings for you to really start to get the feel of it. And there's always a place set for you at the table. So thank you so much for your time with this orientation. We look forward to seeing you at future meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So some people got the meeting.